Hello everybody, welcome back to Value the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And we're here with the March 2022 Block of the Month. So this block, just if you're doing it for the exchange with the Guild, is due at the April meeting. So Shelley kind of worked on this block, figuring it out, and then I had some input, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first of all, Shelley, tell them about what fabrics they need.
Okay.
Just for this block.
I'll point it out here because it's already up here. We need a focus fabric. I'm just going to talk about fabrics for right now. Focus fabric, 2 coordinating fabrics, and a white. Okay, and from those, the focus fabric, you need a 4.5-inch square. And of the white, or I should say the background. It doesn't have to be white. Background could be one of those 3.
Right, because I'm doing mine in blue this month.
Right. You need 8 of those 4.5-inch squares. And then of 2 coordinating colors, or 2 of your other ones.
2 colors that match, have a color in them from the focus fabric.
Right. 2 of those, you need 2 4-inch squares from each one. And then we're going to cut those on the diagonal.
Okay. So now, all right, I'll do the diagonal cut first. So this diagonal cut of the 4-inch squares, you can do it freehand, or you can use a ruler. It doesn't want, and actually you can see one of mine is slightly undersized, and it's okay. They don't have to be exactly 4 inches. So if you've got something that's a little bit off, just I'll tell you where you need to adjust to allow for that. Okay, so Shelley, when she was working on this block, she was just sewing it because, we look at blocks that we see and, change them and figure out how we want to do them. Mm-hmm. So she was just looking at a picture of a block roughly like this one. And so she was doing it. But when I was working on mine, I'm thinking about how am I going to write up these instructions? And so I had to simplify it to make it clear in the written instruction. And so I changed her instructions a little bit, but we're going to tell you both of them. So these 2 pieces that we just cut on the diagonal, oh, you know what? I don't have enough. I need 2 of each, and I only have 2. Oh, okay, I'll have to find 2 more pieces. Okay, so these are going to be these points of these stars. And the way that Shelley had thought to do it originally was she was taking, just fold one of your pieces in half. And,
Okay, let me move this down. And okay, this is my...
And so some people may want to do it this way. That's why we're showing you this way now.
Because I just took mine and laid it on here like this and said, okay, I'm going to sew it here. This is like already cut, even though it's not. And so
the triangle is cut. Yeah.
I said, oh, is that going to cover? It needs to cover your background, at least as big as your background. Oh, well, that's going to be a little weird. Maybe it might not be need to be lined up different.
So she would just adjust it over.
Yeah, I just adjusted it till it worked.
So, but I know from a lot of the blocks that we've made in the past few years that another way to do these kind of triangle corner things is to take your square of fabric and pull it back at least 1/2 inch, and you can make a cut and cut that off. And then you clearly have the full thing. But even with these points, we don't even need it to be the whole half triangle. So we even have a simpler method. And you can do these one at a time so they're all different, or you can do them all at once so they look the same. But what I want you to do is you're going to take a ruler, and okay, so here's the half of the square, and I want you to use one of the lines in your ruler, and I've got the points on 1 inch, and so I can cut this much off, but I can even go smaller as long as I'm at least 3/4 of an inch to like up to maybe even 1.5 inches. It gets really small if you do it too big. But so now this is my cut line, and I'm just going to cut that triangle off. And the way that Shelley was doing it, you are sewing and you eventually have to cut off the background piece. And I know from paper piecing that sometimes people accidentally cut off the piece they meant to leave on. So I personally like to take and cut that background piece off when I can. So I'm going to line this up like I was talking about. I'm going to move it over. I'm at about, oh, I'm way too far.
Okay, and this is 4 of your background.
Yeah, I have a
Did you say
stack
that?
of 4. I'm doing these all at once. You can do them individually. Okay, so here's the inch line, and they come over. That's 1.25 inches. I kind of like that. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Just lay it on there, and now I'm going to cut those corners off. So now your first step is, if you've done it this way, otherwise you do the eyeball method that Shelley was talking about. You take each of these 4 pieces, and you're going to take one of your colors, like say I'll take my yellow, and I am going to go and sew this piece on that corner. And what did we press to the outer, fold it out and press out? I'm guessing. Just press it out. Or press to the dark, whichever way you want to go. So I'm going to sew this on, and then when I am done sewing these 4 triangles on, if you orient the block so the triangle is down like this here, I want you to trim. I want you to take your ruler and lay it on there like you're looking at your original block. So you're going to line up to the bottom edge and this side, and you're just going to trim down here. You just want to trim that straight off, that piece. Leave the bottom alone. Don't worry about that. If you did the other corner, do the same. It's just going to be...
Just do them all the same.
Do the same. I mean, to be honest, it's the same. You know, at this point, because we haven't done anything, if I turn it this way, woo, it's the other corner. Okay? So you just want to trim off, not the bottom corner, this edge here, that side. Make it straight. Do all of those. And then we'll come back. Okay, so we're back. I have a correction. I'll admit it. It's always a work in progress with us.
It is.
I told you only to cut that one edge. I actually want you, if you haven't done it, you're going to have to go back now and make these back into a 4.5 inch square. I realized after I did it that it's too hard to do this next cut somewhat correctly if they're not a 4.5 inch.
You might make a mistake.
Yeah. So anyway, so now, and the other thing we didn't mention, in choosing the first triangle you put on, that's the one that you're going to have the least color of. Okay, so the color that you want more prominent in your square is your second triangle.
That's
okay?
true. Yes.
Okay, so hopefully you picked that correctly. Okay, so now the next step is really just like the first, where we're going to take the ruler, we're going to set it on that diagonal, and we're going to cut off, we're going to move over. So now it's on about 1 inch over, and I'm going to move it over a little more. And the thing I forgot to mention was that if your squares were less than 4 inches, then you really want to move over closer to 1.5 inches. You need the 4 inches if you're doing around the smaller amount. But if you don't have that whole amount, then you're cut off a smaller triangle to fill. And you may have to look a little bit at the placement of how that triangle goes to make sure it covers it. But there should be plenty. So the other consideration right now is, and I've got my squares 2 different ways, you have to decide which way you want them to overlap. And Shelley and I did it the same on these. But if you turn it the other way and cut the other side and cut it this way, then it's gonna
just looks like it's going swirling the other way.
Yeah. So it either way is fine. Just do one or the other. Yeah. So we want you to do that. Cut that off. Add your last 4 corners, and then
trim those.
We don't care about the length.
True, but are we making it?
I mean, if you're very accurate, the last part you need to have an accurate 1/4 inch seam. But that just is going to be how it is. You have to, because we didn't really allow extra.
Right, because the corners and the center are at your 4.5. So.
Yeah, where everything needs to end up. So you're going to trim these back, You're going to put on that last corner, trim them to 4.5 again, and then we'll come back and show the final placement. Okay?
Right.
Okay, so now you should have 9 pieces that are a 4.5-inch square. I'm just going to back up 1 second. Just when you're putting those corners on, I want to say that triangle piece, you know, don't be, kind of center it on that corner, and then you're pretty much to have a full corner. If you try to just do that little 1/4-inch overlap, it may not be enough of a corner at the bottom. Okay, so Shelley has her pieces arranged how we want you to do this for the final block. Mine are just sitting here. Anyway, so basically what we want you to do now is you're going to sew 3 rows across, press the top rows towards your plain squares, and press the middle row towards the center, and then they will nest, and you won't have a lot of seam there. And then, so after you do those, Shelley did want me to mention to use a scant 1/4-inch. That way you'll definitely have a 12.5-inch square block. Then sew those 3 together, and we'll come back with our finished block. All right, so we have our finished blocks. So Shelley did comment. She thought, "Isn't this block really almost too easy?" And it really is. The only tricky part is 1/4-inch seam.
I know.
So we are kind of expecting a little more of you to be good at your seams.
Yeah, because we're trying to improv stars, which is not as easy as you might think. So
yeah. All right, so we'll see you back here next month.